Hello. I wish I could document smell. I'm in Grand Haven, Michigan, with the lilac bushes on a walk amidst a pandemic, amidst riots, amidst pain. I shouldn't even say riots, I should say protests. There's just protests going on right now, and some violent people are trying to turn them into riots. Hopefully the truth will keep coming to light, and hopefully justice. I can't even talk about justice. That's how much I'm not meant for politics. I have never had justice in my life around any of my individual traumas. I've never gotten to hold an abuser accountable for their actions. All I've done is moved on and focused away from this world for the most part, and so it's hard for me to imagine what a collective trauma is being endured by, as I've heard said, minoritized communities, and what that feels like to have a sense of a sense of deserving justice, having a sense of deserving even reparations, having a sense of deserving a lot of things that you're not getting. And I guess that is something I relate to, but in a very privileged white skin way, where I can walk around a neighborhood during all of this unrest and feel relatively safe and untargeted. And it's just, I can't even begin to imagine what somebody's feeling in having to worry about their own family, their own children, just getting like a speeding ticket. Like, I can't. Anyway, it's a very confusing time to be alive, because to be an ally is not to talk too much, not to share thoughts like this too much. That is not what the movement needs. It doesn't need a bunch of white people jumping on board and saying, I can't imagine this. It's like, I read something that said, well, that's offensive. If you can't imagine it, you haven't been paying attention, because it's been happening. So you should be able to imagine it, in that it's been happening and you've been watching, hopefully, and giving a crap. And that's sort of the message that I see and have a hard time with, because I've been very self-involved. And self-involvement for me is a form of self-preservation, and it is a way of dealing with pretty severe PTSD, maybe bipolar 2, anxiety, all those things without meds. And so self-involvement, I don't even think of it as self, I think of it as creativity involvement, alignment involvement, just kind of staying as in tune as I can with not sure what's going on, but hopefully it's all okay. I really don't know. I don't have answers. I imagine you don't either. We live on, I was going to say borrowed land. That's horribly wrong. Stolen land. It's not my fault. It's maybe not even my ancestors' fault. But it's my responsibility. Like, my ancestors might have not been the ones who were harming in any way. I suspect that I have very passive ancestors, because everyone in my family is fairly passive. They're like drinkers, or they're project makers, or game players. And the most ambitious of them maybe is like becoming a doctor. I don't know. But that's not a useful line of thought. It's like, but I still get to experience the privilege of having skin that doesn't flag me for potential, I was going to say acts of violence. I don't believe the majority of police officers or I mean, at this point, I'm just scared of all the violence that's been unfolding, and I don't know why our leader, quote unquote, is wanting to exacerbate so much violence, other than even violent thinking, other than that war sells, and it's selling, news cycles. It's getting everybody using Facebook. It's getting everybody, I don't know. I can't begin to understand the mind of a madman. I can't begin to understand the minds, because it's not just him, it's calculated. I can't begin to understand the minds of controlling people who are trying to control the masses. Even just hearing about how some of these peaceful protests were turning violent, or even the looting or anything, like if some of it is literally, like there was the video of the guy in the white man in all black and a mask just randomly breaking windows to try to make a peaceful protest seem more violent than it was, or more, I don't know. I shouldn't talk on these things. If I've learned anything on Facebook, it's that from black and brown acquaintances, most of my friends don't speak this way, of any color, but I see things shared, and I see that I'm not supposed to speak on it, really, but I'm also supposed to be an ally, but I'm supposed to use my voice to elevate other voices. I have a long history of following what I'm told to do. That is what it is to be a recovering abuse victim. And so if I ever seem like I'm not doing an honorable enough job in following the loudest voices in the room, whether they're black voices, white voices who are more entrenched in activism than me, if it ever seems like I am checking out, like is the thing in white fragility, like if it seems like I am, I have confirmed this with multiple activist types of people, that white fragility and trauma related fragility are not the same thing. And I'm taking things personally as attacks sometimes, saying that, all the talk about you should do more, you should be angry, you should stand up, you should do all this. It's like, I'm waiting for people to give a disclaimer to people like me, like, or if you have too many issues to be able to handle that, then take care of yourself and do things in small ways. And, finally had a really great conversation about it with a person that I respect, and I'm grateful that we, had a chance to talk it through, I guess you could say. I don't believe in anger. I know that other people do. I believe in fire, like as a sign, like in terms of swift action. I believe that you can burn a forest to control something, but that's the key, is control. It's a controlled burn that has a positive effect, not a completely devastating to an entire region forest fire that uses up all the resources and exhausts everyone and kills people and homes. And it's like, fire is my metaphor for anger, and it's like, or like when you watch like Avatar: The Last Airbender, like fire is the one that just wants to have power and control and take over everything. And that's why I don't trust anger, because I feel like anger is like that. Anger knows that it can be the loudest voice in the room, and it can demand and command attention, and the only solution that water, air, earth, any other type of energy, which would be something fluid, something adaptable, something invisible, something grounded. The only recourse that those other types of people or types of elements or types of ways of being would have would be to not be like you, being angry. Like if I think your anger is too much and you're not doing a controlled burn, you're doing a burn the whole state of Colorado down and go on emergency. If that's what I see, then I'm not going to join in your fire. But I do believe in the use of that fire for things like when Jesus went into the temple and flipped the tables. Like you don't just walk around and say peace and love. Like sometimes you have to like grab the table and say, you cannot do this anymore. We're not letting you do this anymore. And I understand that that's the point of the sword, of anger, of something more direct and cutting. than my more watery, airy, floaty ways that I've been developing, even though I'm actually a fire sign. And I think I'm also a horse. I'm an Aries and I'm a horse, and I think I'm like an earth horse or a metal horse or something. But like, oh yeah, so back to abuse. So if you've been abused, it's very hard to follow these sort of authoritative voices on these movements. And I can resonate with people who speak compassionately when they're trying to lead, but I can't resonate with people who are speaking aggressively when they're trying to lead. Because then I just feel like you are manipulating me or abusing me, even though you're making valid points that the world deserves to hear. And so my default setting in my trauma brain is to just check out, because I can't listen to you when you talk like that. And does that mean you should change your message? Probably not, because things aren't getting done. You know, it's appalling. It's terrifying. It's like as if there were school shootings and now we're not in schools and now there's just lynchings. Like, it's insane. I just don't even understand what we're living in. It's literally like I need to get off Facebook, because it's like I say I don't read the news, but I'm reading this microcosm of news that comes through people that I know, and it's making me think that everyone's thinking about this stuff all the time, but maybe they're just thinking about it when they're sharing it on Facebook. It's too much. And maybe just today was too much. I was on Facebook for hours trying to like unfollow people that are super triggering to my PTSD, and I was trying to make sure I was following, making sure I'm still getting the content, because I care about liberal values, but I also do care about having a broad perspective. I like having conservatives in my feed. I like having moderates in my feed. I like seeing a wide range, because then in moments like this, when I see people who have previously supported lots of things all stand up and say justice for George Floyd, then I'm like, oh, like, this is good for me to know with my sort of childlike brain that like, no, this isn't a partisan issue. This is just like a tragedy. I mean, and I can think that or sense that, but for me it helps to see it, how it is amongst lots of different people. But yeah, I don't know. I think I'm too soft or too weak for this world. I don't know how people do it. It's sort of like, when I think about the reasons that I stayed with people who were hurting me, and I just, like, deeply hurting me, and I think about all the ways I tried to make those situations work, is that sort of the same way that I stay with Facebook? Like, Facebook doesn't serve me. And it's not because I don't want the information. I would rather unfriend and undo or deactivate Facebook, and then actually have the time and space and the mental capacity to, go get one of these books that have been recommended to me on institutionalized and inherited racism. And I would rather softly look at these issues without just being in fear from watching people just get really upset. It's just been an upsetting day, a couple of days. So, well, that's me going on a walk, I guess, talking to myself by some lilacs. Bye.